Southeastern Bowhunter Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Southeastern Bowhunter Podcast. This episode is going to be with my buddy Dylan Albright from Blue River Bowhunting. We got our mutual friend Brett on here a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so, and me and Dylan have been talking ever since then, planning food plots. And I don't know anything about food plots, so this whole episode, at least that's the plan, is going to be basically a food plot course 101. So for those of you who are going to be doing your first plots this year like me, definitely want to listen to this. Before we get into the partners and everything else in this episode, I want to let you guys know the third annual Southeastern Bowhunter Bow Shoot is going to be July 13th at Clybell WMA, their archery range at 9 a.m. So I hope to see you guys there. I'm working on a bunch of different giveaways to do for y'all. I don't really know what the big giveaway is going to be this year, if we have one. Still kind of trying to figure that one out. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, just reach out to me on Facebook. I've had a few people reach out. So I'm really excited to see who all shows up. Let's make it a big year. And, you know, I'm trying to spoil you guys. I'm trying to make sure that everybody leaves with something. So that's that. Let's see what else is going on. Got my new bow hunting arrows. I should say bow hunting. My deer season arrows built. You can see them behind me if you're watching the video. Running the RIP TKOs with the Osteo Gear wraps, the Boning Alpha vanes, some lighted nocks that are Amazon because they're cheaper and just as good as everything else. Don't argue with me on that. Well, actually, you can't argue with me on that. It's fine. But got to save a little bit of money where we can. And obviously, I'm running the G5 broadheads. Probably going to be shooting the Dead Meat V2s and the Mega Meats. Let's see. So that's pretty much all the new stuff. Got everything else pretty much prepped. I'm going to be putting some scrape stuff out tomorrow at a couple spots. And yeah, that's about it. We're almost in summertime. So it's just about go time as far as summer prep goes. So before we get into this episode with Dylan and talk all about food plots, got to run through the partners. We got Working Class Bowhunter. Now, let me just remind you guys, all of the discount codes are down in the description below. All right. If you're watching the video, it's in the YouTube description. If you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, it is in the episode description. So partners, Working Class Bowhunter, go get some new merch. I've got one of their shirts on right now. Osteo Gear, camo brand of choice. Some big things coming from Osteo. Some new stuff coming. I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. But mum's the word right now. Mission Whitetail. It's not really a partner, but I'm trying to promote it for Joe, so you guys can go listen to that podcast and learn extremely in depth every episode about whitetail hunting and what makes them successful. Because Joe is one of the best whitetail hunters one of the best hunters that I know. Dude knows how to kill giants. So definitely giving them a shout out now. Summit stands, got my sticks ready. Super excited. Going to be hanging the stand and everything in July. So really can't wait for that. The Bowtique, awesome arrow wraps. He's got some new cartoon version stuff. The new Stitch movie is out. So he made some Stitch wraps. Those were pretty sick. Bergie Bowsmith. Same as always, Bergie's just a bow wizard. If you want to get your bow tuned by him, go to his website and sign and get that order placed, or you can get some of the brands that we all trust and use off his website. He is a dealer for a lot of them, and he's actually a dealer for Truth Archery now. So if you guys are interested in those bows, you can go check them out. Me personally, as you know, I shoot the Prime. You can see it behind there, the Prime Form. That's my bow of choice. Smoothest drawing bow I've ever shot. Super fast, super stable. Just an amazing bow. So I'm kind of wanting to push you guys towards Prime. Definitely check those out because they've got the Form, they've got the RVX 32 and 34 plus. And look, man, I wish I could talk more about what Prime's got coming, but I can't. Next up is going to be G5 Outdoors. I already kind of talked about that. Running the Mega Meats this year. But they also have fixed blades. If you want to use those in other mechanicals, they've got the Montec M3, the Striker V2 and Striker X. And then as far as mechanicals go, they've got the Dead Meat V2 and the T2. So check everything out that they've got to offer. G5, in my opinion, is the #1 broadhead on the market right now. The Mega Meat has been showing that for years. So I trust them. You guys should too. Dialed Archery. Dialed's actually got a new, when the time this drops, it's probably going to be gone because they keep doing this, but they've got a new, I think, First Light Camo small batch that dropped. So check that out. Ace Hardware and Social Circle. As you know, that's my home shop. I go there all the time. Moultrie is the cell camera company that I'm working with now. My Moultries have been working fantastic. I'm actually potentially getting one out tomorrow. Now that I think about it, I probably need to grab that and put it in my truck. But yeah, no, the Moultries are working great. Solar panels, power packs, all of that stuff. Head over to Moultrie and get you some new cameras for this summer. Camo dust. It's what I've been using for a couple of years now to stay concealed scent wise in the woods. Boning Archery, running the Boning Alpha. That is their new hunting vane. They also have the Atlas, which is more of like the 3D tack style. It's the same exact shape, but it's a different material. So a little bit, less stiff. So it might be a smidge louder, but honestly, both vanes are going to do great. They also have the Blazers. They got the the Heat, the X vanes, all of that stuff. Then there's the Chase, my buddy Brock's YouTube channel. Go check it out. Go watch all of his videos. Go subscribe. And then last but not least is going to be Odyssey, brand new hunting app that's coming out next month, and I cannot wait to see what they come out with that. So that's all the partners. Obviously Victory Archery is my my arrow brand of choice. Been partnered with them now for about a year. I was going to get the HLRs, which if you guys don't know, the HLR is a new arrow that Victory just came out with. It is I think it's a 1.5K carbon weave, so it's stronger, it's more stiff, better straightness, and they were able to figure out how to actually shave some weight, so now you can have higher FOC. I think the 300 spine is like at 8.1, which is, or 8.2 or 3, like that's insane. So that is all of the partners. I need to be open and honest with you guys. I've kind of been struggling a little bit. All right. I don't know if it's the enemy trying to get to me, or I'm letting my guard down, or what, but I've had I guess you could say a rough couple of days. But the reason I say that is because I want to talk to you about Jesus. If you guys don't know who Jesus is, he is the only reason I'm even able to really get through those rough days. Even when we this is the main thing. I was thinking about this morning. Jesus meets you where you're at. He doesn't ask you to come to him perfect. He meets you where you're at. And I cannot thank him enough for that. Even when you already accept him, right? And we all struggle. We all fall short of the glory of God. He is still there. If you turn to him and you truly in your heart ask him for forgiveness and you repent. I mean, that's the main message a lot of these churches these days aren't teaching. Repentance is change of mind on what it was that you were doing. So say you have a drinking problem, right? And you find Jesus and you want to, change for the better, right? It's destroying your life. Well, repenting from that is changing your mind on how you feel about drinking. I mean, and then changing it, right? It's a process. So just kind of got a little heavy there. I'm sorry, but I just need to talk to you guys about that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's get started with Dylan from Blue River Bowhunting. We're going to talk food plots, probably big deer, and I'm excited. So hopefully you guys learn from this. I know I'm going to. Let's get started. Got the second half of Blue River Bowhunting on tonight, Mr. Dylan Albright, and he and I have been talking for, how long has it been, Dylan? Like a month now?
Yeah, ever since Brett hopped on, yeah.
Yeah, so we've been talking back and forth, and he's been giving me some advice on food plots, which I don't know anything about. I don't really know anything about land management. I try to do it. And when I say I try to do it, that means cut down a couple trees that are blocking a shooting lane. So it's really not anything crazy, but we're going to cover as much as we can about food plots. Before we do, though, I kind of want to hear more about you. I want people to understand who you are, how you got to where you're at with all this stuff, and just anything you think they need to know.
Yeah, so I guess my dad had me out hunting, chasing squirrel and stuff since I could stand the cold. So I'm 32. I've been after it consistently since about 5. He had me out. And man, we always just hunted public, or we had some nice permission pieces. And as I got older, I was like, I really want to take something and grow it like I'm seeing on these hunting shows. And so I guess I was about 18, and that's the first time I got my own lease. So at 18, I got my lease, and it didn't really have any deer on it, man. And I was like, this sucks. Like I'm spending this money. And I went and I sat down with the landowner, and I was like, look, this is my plan. I want to learn how to, get the deer in here, and I want to learn how to hold them. And he was like, go for it, man. Whatever you want to do, you just take off after it. So of course I went to YouTube and hit up some of my buddies who were having success regularly. And I went in and of course everybody always preaches food. you have to have food. You have to have food. Well, I learned pretty quick that they do like food, but they'll hit food in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And I was more keen on trying to catch the transitions of them coming in and out. So I really started this whole journey focusing on the food plot stuff or the food plots. But number one was bedding. So I would go through and I would like hinge cut. I would take whatever I could get my hands on at the time, like sawzalls and four wheelers, and I would just make big bedding areas, man. And then I would learn how they, maneuvered through that. And then I started doing really good on that. Within like 3 years, I was holding deer consistently. Like I was seeing deer every time. So that addiction rolled into I need more. I need more. And at the time I couldn't afford to buy my own piece of dirt. So I just started hitting the neighbors' farms, and man, I was just a menace to all the farmers. I was like, hey, I don't want to just hunt. Like, let me lease this so that I can, at the end of this, your fences are going to look better. Your fields are going to look better. Like, you're getting the better deal, I promise.
Yeah.
And I locked down a bunch of leases, man. And I got one at about 22 that was just insane. Like, me and the guy, he was an older guy, didn't have any family, and he would help me with his tractor, and he would help me just with everything, disking, tilling. Like, that's when it really started going, and that's when I started killing my, the bigger deer, and got my first 8. And then after that, I was starting to get real picky, and then that kind of led into where I'm at now with our own farms. And once I got my own farm, man, it's just been, I don't ever come inside. I'm just building bedding. I'm building the transition areas. I'm building rut and strut zones. Like, it's so, like, I've got a big notepad wrote down of like what we're doing this year, how we're going to rotate crops for next year, because the way that it pulls nutrition out of the soil. Keeping a log of what I'm seeing, where are they spending the most time. And then the bedding areas we're making, dude, we're not going in them at all. Like, I don't care if there's a tom in that 15 acres that's gobbling, we're not chasing him. He's going to have to come out. And it's become their own little safe haven. And then, so I'll do like 10 acres of bedding. All 3 sides of that will be food plots, and I'll rotate it. I'll do turnips, radish, clover, and then I'll do the screens, right, with corn. So what I mean by screens is, if a buck can see the entire field from the wood line, he's more than likely not going to come out if he's seeing the field and it's empty. So what I do is I'll plant these. It's pretty much a little maze. So instead of one big food plot, I've got like 4 or 5 little food plots, and it's wrapped in corn or just native vegetation that I've let grow up, above their vision. And I've started doing that, and you'll see these bucks come out and they'll physically check every little segment of the field, and they'll work all the way through. So it's just like, the more you watch, the more you learn. Because when I was first doing food plots, man, I was cutting it plumb back to the tree line, and I was getting as much food in there that I could. And then that's when I was like, okay, those bucks are never coming out into the field. They're staying tucked up there because they can see everything. There's no need for them to come out. And it's such an addiction for me. And then I've got 2 little kids. I've got one that's 2 and one fixing to be 5. And man, I've got them on the Bobcat with me. They're in the tractor running it. They're we've got 5 food plots planted this year. I've only planted 1. They have planted the other. Yeah, they've planted all the other ones.
Wow.
Yeah, they know how to work the broadcaster. They know more probably than most people do, just because that's what we do year round.
Yeah. That's insane, man. I mean, you kind of hit something that I've been talking with my buddies a lot about lately, is like food. I mean, in Georgia, at least what I've seen, and I don't know if it's like this for you guys, but our rut is terrible, at least in this area, right? So what we've kind of noticed is like food, the first month and a half is the most important thing, and down here we can bait. So obviously a lot of people, myself included, go, I guess you could say the lazy route. And what I've been noticing that's making me kind of stray away from just baiting in general is they show up at night a lot. And I remember when I first started, I used to think, oh, dude, I'll get this bag of corn, I'll pour it out, and this 150-inch deer I've got on camera is going to show up. Now he'd show up, just not in daylight. It'd be right
Yeah.
before or right after, and it's like, what can I do? Now, mind you, it was, in the woods, so there is no food
Right.
plot to be made, but it's kind of a change that I'm looking at now, and you actually already gave me some advice just by saying about the screening and all that stuff that I'm
Hmm.
going to use, because the place that I plan on going to and making like a micro kill plot, I guess you could call it,
Yeah.
is it's not even an acre, but it's this one opening in this whole giant hardwoods, right?
Yeah.
And I think because I've been getting photos and stuff and it's really starting to overgrow, I might honestly just cut like the inside, and leave
Hmm.
maybe like 4 or 5 foot of overgrowth
Yeah.
and plant there,
Yeah.
because it's
That
up on
helps
top of like a
tremendously.
hill, you know,
Yeah.
so that
So
might
yeah,
actually work.
that would keep them from just being able to walk by and pass and look
Hmm.
into it. I mean, obviously they're going to be relying on smell more than anything, but if it's an east wind and the field's more towards the west, he's going to be looking instead of smelling, and
Yeah.
he'll probably circle, but it at least pulls them into it. And then if a doe does come through, you know, 9 times out of 10 she's going to run into the field instead of the woods because she feels like she could probably lose him faster with all of the smaller food plots because they're like,
Yeah.
it's probably a 15-acre field, um, and then it's probably quarter to half acre food plots with like a 10-foot screen. So they
Yeah.
can just disappear. And that kind of hurts me sometimes because I'll see them come out and then I'll see them hit and I'm like, okay, they're going to pop out in, disc quadrant or whatever. And then I just never see them again
Huh.
because they just go out there, they bed down in it.
Yeah.
Or they just get in it and they disappear. They're so elusive. But the screens, man, I've been talking to Spook a lot.
Yeah.
And he's got such an attention to detail that is it, I mean, from not even turning his cabin lights on because he thought that buck knew that, they were there and,
Yep.
he killed him the next day. So I'll hit him with ideals and he's always great to help me out. But anytime that you can sit there and be like, okay, well, put yourself in the hoof kinda and be like, okay, well, I can't see the whole field. I'm going to check it out. And then obviously if you do bedding from bedding here, then 100 yards of food, and then another bedding, they're going to cross through that food because they feel so comfortable. So they're gonna stage there.
Yeah.
That's another thing I do with all my tree stands. I don't ever put them on the food plot. I put them in staging zones, 15, 20 yards back off of the screen because right before daylight, they're going to be lingering around in the food plot. Guess where they're going to come? They're going to normally come through the screen. And you're
Yeah.
going to get them. Or in the late afternoon, I'll catch a lot of my bucks in that little buffer zone, waiting until it gets dark to feed out into the field.
So what, for the people who are newer to this, what is a staging area?
So a staging, if you go, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain that. So deer obviously feel more comfortable in big open fields at nighttime.
Hmm.
Their vision's way better than ours. It adjusts and they can see pretty well. So before it gets dark, they will get up and they will move. Well, you'll find them a lot of times lingering right on the edges of these big fields. And so that's why I will let it grow up so that you'll literally watch them just use it almost like a highway because it has that safety net of not being, vulnerable, visible. And I've had a lot of luck in it. Now, of course, all of this is just from my experiences. I'm not saying that it's, concrete and works everywhere, but for
Yeah.
me, consistently, we're having very good luck with these staging zones. And what I'll do is I'll let it grow up, food plot. On the backside of what I'm letting grow up, we'll take the bobcat and we'll come through and we'll push everything, probably about a 15-yard radius, and then we'll let it just be nature. It's just woods after that point. But we keep
Hmm.
all the saplings, we keep everything cut back and scraped.
Yeah.
And I will also go through and growing up, I always seen deer on um, like four-wheeler trails, logging roads. So what I've done on my farms is from the bedding to the food plot to the other food plot to the other bedding, I have cut roads.
Hmm.
And especially for turkey, this works great because all the fields will get high before you mow them for hay. Well, the
Yeah.
turkeys don't like to disappear into the hay. So all my turkey are staying on these strut zones 10 yards off the big food plots in the fields. And then I've noticed a lot of doe and bucks during rut. The buck will get after the doe in the field and she'll bounce off through the screen and she'll hit these logging roads and she just takes off. Well, then all my logging roads, I'll disc them. So, like, um, the end of summer, right when everything starts dying off, probably early October, I'll take the disc, hook it to the tractor, and I'm dragging all my zones. And what that's doing is it's flipping the dirt. So your turkey is going to get in there and they're going to pick worms and bugs, but it's also releasing the forbs. So the soil, it has a nature's seed bank pretty much. And what you're doing is you're flipping it up and it releases the forbs, all the natural grasses and stuff like that. So the next year, it'll start growing and growing. And some of my logging roads just look like well manicured pieces of yard. Because those forbs will come up, and I've got clover growing in there. I've got there's always turnips or radish popping up where we spill. So it's like just kind of like free frost seeding, pretty much, if you turn that up, and then it keeps all your saplings out of there. Because man, once those saplings in 6 months' time grow up, and if for some reason you're sitting on the ground, it's impossible to see more than 40, 50 yards. So I just try to fine tune everything that we're hunting, and I try to take, the element of that limb's in the way, or I can't see because of this tree branch. This past weekend we were cutting tree branches now because the first part of bow season, it looks exactly like it does now. Super green. So we're already prepping, getting all that stuff done, planting, and the tractor's going here nonstop. So the deer don't mind the tractor at all. When Brett comes in to deer hunt, I literally take him on the side by side or a tractor, and he hops off, climbs the stand. And that one morning, or I think it was an afternoon, within like 9 minutes of me dropping him off, he had deer coming through.
Yeah.
So it's
Dude,
crazy.
I've noticed that. I've seen it before where, like, and I know Lee Ellis and them have done this too, but like, and I did this last year actually with one of my spots that I used to have, is I would go in there and the buck that I was after, and granted, this made me extremely cocky and it's probably why I didn't get to kill him, but I would go in there and like, I would see him while I was driving in, because it was 1 acre, right? It was 1 acre power line that was on, it had, one set of timber here, one set of timber across the street, and it was in this neighborhood on the lake. And so I'd drive in and I'd look over and I'd see him, or I'd see some does or something. And, again, Georgia, if you ain't baiting, you're waiting, right?
Yeah.
So I'd go pour some corn out and I could literally watch them come running down, right? So I'm like, dude, this is going to be a shoo-in. First day, first sit, he's dead.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, so I have to keep driving my same truck, like, because I've got a work van in my personal truck. And dude, I'm telling you, I think I drove the work van a little too much, because I drove the truck in there that one time and I maybe saw 2 deer. And it's just like, if you consistently go, I feel like if you consistently go with the same thing, or you have, I'm not trying to say deer are, geniuses or anything, but I feel like they pick up on that because they're out there to survive, So you doing that and them getting used to the tractor and using the tractor to get in there and drop someone off, it's freaking genius.
Yeah. I mean, they live there, like they know if something's off, they know. And I'm in a very fortunate situation with the way this farm lays. There is probably, it's a huge subdivision. It's not a subdivision. It is, but it isn't. It's a gated community where each house has to be minimum of like $2 million to build in it. So it's undeveloped for the most part. It's like, I don't even know how many acres. It's massive, and it wraps the 2 sides of our farm, and then the back side's the lake. And there's not many houses in there. So each house is on like 4 to 5 acres, and they have the best grass in there. They're not allowed to hunt because of HOA, and everybody in there that is in there has deer feeders because they feed them. And they can't hunt them, but a lot of them are hunters, and they like to watch them. And man, those deer are going off in that, getting down in the valley, losing people completely. And then you'll watch them just come out of that neighborhood, and they'll just feed right onto me, come straight through, hit my farm, and then yeah, it's insane. But they're out in those people's
wild.
grasses and gardens, and it is insane. But they feel so comfortable there. But as soon as they cross the fence, if they catch a wind, they're gone. Like they can adapt so quick. Now another farm I have is it's a hellacious walk in, man. It is brutal, and it is by far my favorite farm to hunt. There at any time a 150 to 170 could potentially come through there. And I mean, I have to hop myself up, dude, to make that walk because obviously it's super cold. I'm lugging in my climbing stand, and I'm carrying half of my clothes. I've got my climbing stand on my back, and it gets super steep, and it takes me probably about 45 minutes to an hour to walk a mile in. And that's me taking breaks because I don't want to get super sweaty.
Yeah.
And
is it
man,
really thick too, or is it?
No, it's not super thick. It's just super steep. So like you have to just hike the first portion of it. And I get back in there and I get up to the top and I'll drop off, and dude, every time it's like you'll see them right off the rip. And then I was this past year I really honed in on just setting longer. My patience have gotten way better on just setting. Like I'm in here, I'm gonna wait the absolute longest I can.
Yeah.
And I was like, I noticed something, and I started writing it down. I was like, okay, these deer really start moving at 9:30. Like, that's where I need to really focus on. Like, still get in early because you never know what's going to creep by at daybreak. But man, when I shot that one, he's pushing 140. I woke up, dude. I was tired. I was like, because I just come back from Indiana, and I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna if there's so many people that would die to hunt this spot. Like I have to go. Like I can't not hunt because that's the
Like
way I
die
hype
to
myself
hunt it
up.
or die trying to hunt it.
No, they like if you were to call anybody, man, they would
Yeah.
call in. They're not missing the opportunity to hunt some of these farms. And dude, I was like, yeah, I've got to go. And I lugged in, and right off the rip, I never shoot doe. I don't ride the four wheelers there. I walk up on two does. They were bedded down. I get like 40 yards from them. They get up. They don't run. They walk off. I'm like, okay, sweet. Pick my tree, climb. Right off the rip, a 120s comes through, checks that doe bed. I've got a video of him. I mean, it was crazy. He comes
What
right
time of
through.
year is this?
This was the second weekend of December, first or
Oh,
second
wow.
weekend of December. That's when it really gets good here.
Really?
So yeah, it's late November, early December is the prime time.
Interesting.
So I text Brett because Brett was supposed to come down that weekend. I was like, dude, just let a good one walk. Look up, small buck coming, checks the bed. Then it clicks with me. That doe is in estrus right now. She is in heat.
Yeah.
And she was bedded right there. I think I seen 7 bucks that morning coming to that bed, and I've never seen anything like it, man. They were coming in, they were licking the branch where she was laying. They were like circling, and they were just standing over it. And I'm watching, I'm kind of like and I'm standing up because I stand up quite a bit just to be ready. And I'm watching this buck, and then I see his demeanor just change. Like he kind of backs up and he starts walking a little bit backwards, and I'm like, oh crap, something's happening. So when I turn like this, man, there he is, just a bruiser coming straight up the hill. So I pull my gun up. He's probably like 45 yards. Pull the muzzleloader back. Like I was telling you earlier, I'm just a muzzleloader man. You'll never see me with a rifle. And I click. Primer doesn't fire. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I pull it back again. Boom. And he freezes up. And I'm like, oh man, I think he's fixing to go down. Then he just starts walking. And he comes right down in front of me at like 20 yards, and he just stops. And he was hunched up pretty bad. So I got my muzzleloader reloaded, and I waited. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to shoot him again. And he laid down, luckily, and expired right there, 30 yards from me. But I had more bucks that was coming in behind him. And there was one that was, if not bigger than he was. And he was just, he was coming up too. He was downwind. He was just coming right up. But, I take my time getting in so I don't get super sweaty. I try to hunt the wind if I can, but I also try to climb so high. And the way that this ridge lays, I'm 25 foot on this side, but on the back side of the tree, I might be 35 feet because of the elevation drop. You know what I mean? So like I try to play that where if it's blowing this way, it's going to be carrying it a little bit higher. And
Now, are
So
you
that
watching thermals a lot when you're doing that too?
no,
Really?
no, I really don't pay. I really don't pay attention to. I hate to say it, but I really don't. I mean, I do, but I don't. Even on the wind, I just try to climb high enough on the sides to where I'm watching them before, you know. But now that piece of property that I'm hunting, it is all mature hardwoods. It's not any food
Oh,
plot. So like
okay.
I know, you know, they use this one finger pinch the entire like that's how they cross.
Yeah.
Um yeah, so the way I lease my farms is kind of wild. I'll go to a farmer and I'll be like, "Hey, you know, I'm interested in leasing this farm on one condition. I'm the only one that's allowed to hunt. I don't want anybody else hunting. And if anybody else is going to hunt, that's fine. I'm just not interested in the lease. But if you lease it to me, this is what you're going to get.
Yeah.
You know, property management. You're going to see more deer. Your fields are going to stay clean. Whatever you need, I'm going to come in and take care of. I've got some that I'll go and do. You know, if they need a plumber to come through, like I'll send a plumber. I'll send a plumber out there and have it taken care of for them. Like
Wow.
I take care of them, but
Yeah.
I'll make them sign that lease agreement saying that I'm the only one to be there, and I've got farms, man, that I've not hunted in like 4 or 5 years, and I try to rotate them. That way, you know, there's no hunt pressure getting put on this farm for 3 to 4 years. I come in, obviously, they should still be doing what they were doing prior to me not hunting it, and then it's just almost like it's it, it's just so fresh to come in and hunt unpressured deer. And I
Yeah.
really try to do that. Like my home farm, I didn't really hunt it last year. This year, with all the new food plots we're putting in, it'll probably be one of the things where we hunt it to get content,
Yeah.
um, filler footage pretty much of just deer in the fields and stuff like that. Unless a giant shows up, then of course we'll hunt him. But yeah, I
Yeah.
try to rotate all my farms and I'm stepping it up. I've went and got a little Kubota tractor that's a lot easier to get into these hard to reach spots. So like I'm going in, taking the bucket, clearing out these spots, and just cutting in brand new food plots, man. That's this
Huh.
past weekend I was sending you some videos of this just an overgrown field. It's probably about a 3 acre field, and we cut half of it down, left a big screen. We're disking and just seeding the crap out of it with clover. And it probably won't be that good this year as far as
Mhm.
a clover plot, but next year it'll be thriving.
So, all right, I'm glad that you mentioned the clover and all that because what I'm planning on doing, I want to hear your thoughts on this. So, I don't have any equipment other than a lawnmower, like a
Yeah.
stand-up Ferris, and Roundup. So, what I'm planning on doing at this place, I was going to do a spring plot, but then I thought about it. And I'm like, man, at the time I didn't even know if I could still hunt this place. So I
Yeah.
just solidified that like 2 days ago. And I had already had it in my head that I would do a summer plot. And I'm thinking about doing probably clover. But
Yeah.
what would you like if you were me, right? And you had the equipment that I have, what exactly would you go do? Would you cut it down as low as you can and then spray and then wait a couple days and plant? Or because I don't have a tiller, all I've got is the lawnmower and Roundup, and that's it.
Now, is this in the woods or is it like field power
It's
line?
it's that spot I was telling you about. It's
Okay.
probably a 60-yard long by 25, 30, 35-yard wide.
So what I would do is that I would clover. And the reason that I would clover is already growing. I've already had to mow clover
Mhm.
once. I'm gonna have to mow it at least once a month, pretty much. The deer, clover's kind of like the acorns, man. They're attracted to it. Um, I'm
Yeah.
I would go straight clover, and what I would do is I would mow it down real, just as much as you could. You could spray it and wait a week or two. Come through, broadcast, overseed, and then just take a rake and just rake it in. Um, or even
Okay.
on the lawnmower, if you can get your hands. I used to do this. I found me a big piece of chain length, and I ran a bar through it, and I put two snap-on cables at the end of it, and I made like a little drag. And I would broadcast,
Hmm.
broadcast, broadcast. I would come out with that chain length. I'd put some cinder blocks on it, and I would just drag it around and get that. You know, obviously, soil contact is very important. So you want to drag it,
Yeah.
but you're not crushing the seed or anything like that. So yeah, a small piece of, a 4x4 piece of chain length with a, weighted mat on top of it. You're talking about really getting some good soil contact like that. But clover from spring to fall is your best bet. because
Okay.
I mean, I
So
have switched to a lot of clover, and that's saying a lot
yeah.
because I start planting in March, and I'll stagger different food plots so that I have spring food, I have summer food, I have fall food, and then I'll plant all the way up into early October so that they have like late
Wow.
January, February food. So, I mean, I'm planting a ton, an absolute a lot, but like I've got fields now that are disked waiting to be planted, and they won't be for another 3 to 4 weeks.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, see, that's what blows my mind about this food plot stuff, and there's so much that goes into it. Because I've tried. I I tried last year because I was stubborn and I didn't want to listen to anybody. I really didn't have a lot of time, because especially now my daughter's getting older and she's doing
Mhm.
sports and we have family stuff. It's summertime, like it gets pretty
Yeah.
busy. And so I remember one time I took a half day at work. I went out to this spot, same spot I'm telling you about. I think it was last year. Or no, I'm sorry, it was the year before. And I took a rake and that was it. They
Yeah.
had just cut it. And so I just took a rake and I maybe went 30 foot and I was dead tired. And I'm like, you know what, dude, I'm just gonna try. Had a whole bag of clover. So I just raked up as much as I could, threw it out there. And this is what made me mad is the deer came and ate the seed that night
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
before it even got a chance. And I'm
Pick
like, well,
through it.
this is a waste of time. Yeah. So I just was like, dude, I either didn't do it right or I just these deer are so hungry, which they really shouldn't be because there's a farm a quarter mile up the road that I know they go
Yeah.
to,
Well, it's
So
funny because you have to beat the turkey too. The turkey will get out there and pick it. The dove, I
yeah.
have a hard time with the dove getting out there and picking my fields. Um, but that's why, a heavier disking or a good drag will
Yeah.
get you enough soil coverage, to keep them from just picking it up.
Okay. So all right. So we've got the basic, no-till plan set up. So now you're talking about fall seeding and winter feed.
Mhm.
What are you looking at for that? Like, what do you think is the best for people to start planning for that?
I really like the turnips. I have great luck with the turnips. The deer after the first frost tear them up.
Mm,
Corn, I plant a lot of corn. Now, corn, it just pulls so much nutrients from the ground. So I quit doing actual cornfields and I'll do um, 6 foot rows of 6 foot wide corn. And that's what I'm using for some of my screens on the
yeah.
edges of these native grasses. And you'll see them picking in that because, they'll pull it straight off the cob pretty much and drop it. But with that being said, I've noticed a lot of coyotes going and chewing on the corn cob.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know what it is. If it
Huh.
feels good on their teeth, I don't know. But I noticed a lot of coyotes and raccoons hitting the corn. The raccoons will ride the stalks down and just demolish it.
That sounds about right.
I've kind of waged war on the raccoons and I like possums because they don't carry rabies and they eat ticks, but they're crazy on turkey eggs. So like I try to trap them and relocate them.
Yeah.
Um, Raccoons I try to trap and get rid of. Coyotes I'm obviously after, bobcats, anything like that. But yeah, the fall into winter stuff I'm really doing, and each place on the map's going to be different. But I really do have um, a lot of luck with the turnips. Now the early fall stuff I really love the iron clay peas. They
So
they'll grow and they run, right? So the vine will run. So what I'll do is
uh,
is I'll do the big patch of iron clay peas, and then you plant your corn right on it, right on the
yeah.
edges, and you'll watch it just run up the corn stalks. And I mean, it's almost like it's the craziest thing. And the deer love to bed in it because it gets about
Huh.
waist high. And I'll send you some videos of it, dude. The iron clay peas was, and they do very well. They do very well in
Yeah.
my climate. The turnips done great. You mix that with clover and some corn and some radish, and I'll experiment, man. We had one of my food plots. We had watermelon and cucumbers growing.
What, dude?
Yeah. Now that was more for my daughter. She wanted to plant all this stuff, and
Okay.
it was one corner of the food plot, and we had cucumbers, um, green beans they ate. It was just great. Like we had all kinds of just,
Dang.
Tractor Supply special.
Y'all still have that?
No, not this year. We didn't plant
Oh,
that this year.
dang.
I put it up here at the house. So she has her
Yeah.
own little garden up here that she tends to. And
I was gonna say drop the pin because your boy loves some watermelons and
yep, dude,
cucumbers.
it was like that was her highlight of her afternoon. She wanted to come home, feed the chickens, and go to the garden. And
That's
it
awesome.
was, dude, it's so much fun. And um, like you're closer to me than Brett is. So when I go and hunt with Brett, it's satellite woods. It's just strips of woods, and they're hunting like just ungodly amounts of ag.
Yeah.
And he'll be talking to me about, that's crazy how much work y'all are doing. Like I wish I could do that, but where he's at, man, it's just it would be it'd be useless because of how much ag. Like I think we were hunting like a 40-50 acre bean field
Good
when I was
Lord.
up there, and then the cross was like a 400-acre field. And then we were just on we were in like this pinch of just the river. And he was like, yeah, you come up here, it's going to be totally different. And going up there and hunting with him, you know, their style is so much different than down here because they don't have these massive hardwoods to get lost in. Or they have oak trees, but they're not in big patches of them. So like the deer up there, I've learned with him, like if you're not careful, you'll bump them because they're probably in those little satellite woods instead
Yep.
of the field. Um, so he's been trying to show me how to hunt up there. And he comes down and has a great time. And we do the turkey roundup where everybody comes in and disperses and hunts and comes back. And I think we're going to put together something in October, like a public land doe day where we
Yeah.
all just take off and just kind of share a camp. We're trying to build that old school camp vibe back up.
Yeah.
And you get to talk to guys from Michigan, guys from Georgia, guys from North Carolina, Kentucky, and you just sit there and you hear all these different ways that they're hunting these mature bucks. And yeah, they're all going to move somewhat similar, but
Yeah.
some of the tactics you hear,
Oh, it's
is just
completely
crazy.
different. I
Yeah.
mean, I've had like, Kurt from Working Class is one of my go-to guys that I'll call and be like, hey man, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And I mean, yes, the stuff he's told me will work, but he's not hunting Georgia deer. He's not hunting
Right.
Southern deer. And I don't mean to sound like, everybody always says, oh, if you can kill a deer in my home state, then you can kill deer anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm almost convinced that southeastern deer, especially, are the hardest deer in the continent
Yeah,
because
they're
they're
tough.
so skittish, and like the fact that you're able to set your plots up, for that, I can see why you're able to get on these deer. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes sense. So
Yeah.
what kind of because like clover, I don't really think you need to do any type of fertilizer or anything like that, do you?
You can. I would just what I would do, and if you're near a high school, my little trick I told you, get
Hmm.
you a bunch of soil from where you're going to plant, take it to the ag if they have an ag program, and
Hmm.
9 times out of 10 they'll do it for you, and you're going to get, instead of one soil test, you're going to get 15 to 20 back with their recommendations. And
Yeah.
then I'll experiment with some of it. I'll be like, hey man, Toby, I tried your method and it worked really good here, and I tried your method and it didn't do as well. Maybe it's more geared to a different plant, but fertilizer. I've recently partnered up with Domain, and they're great. I've always used a lot of their seed, and then I was like, you know what? I pump out a lot of content. I was like, I love their stuff. I was like, I'm gonna reach out and see if we can work something out,
Yeah.
and we did. And man, really, it's a one-stop shop. Like you can get the fertilizer, you can get like anything that you need for a food plot. You can just go there. Spencer and those guys are absolutely amazing. You can message them directly. They will hit you back up and say, hey, we've got guys in your area that have had success with this. I would recommend this.
Huh.
I mean, they're great. I man, to reach out to a large company and them be able to personally reach back out to you and like
Yeah.
give you actual pointers. Shipping, there's no shipping if you order through them. They cover that for you. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Really?
it's dude, Domain's the ticket. I'm also with Drake Waterfowl.
Yeah.
So like the non-typical old Tom stuff. I've been with Drake since 2017, 2016ish. And that is a company that I swear by, because I have all their numbers in my phone. I'll text them, shout out to Todd Bright with them. He lets me work all the events that are local to me. He'll send me out there, and I get to go hang out with him in Nashville. It's so cool to like have connections with these companies, but on a personal level, to where,
Yeah.
I can recommend, hey man, reach out to Spencer at Domain, or reach out to, Todd, or like reach out to these people. They'll get you taken care of. And I can
Yeah.
honestly say, like, if you did and was like, hey, Dylan said you're the person to help me out, they're going to take extra time to make sure that you did that. Not because I sent you, but because they want you to have a great deer season and
Yeah.
really
I mean, that
thrive
is
with
kind of
that.
a rare thing. I feel like, at least in the industry, because like when I first started this and was able to partner up with Osseo and Summit, I
Mhm.
was scared. Like I
Yeah.
literally felt bad reaching out to them, being like, "Hey guys, could I maybe get some stuff to make content with or promote?" And
Yeah.
over the years, I mean, it's been 3 years now, and it's dude, I can text Jake over at Summit, or I could text Joe, and like I told you earlier, I got off the phone with Brian from G5 earlier.
Yeah.
It's good to have those types of relationships,
Yeah. Well,
and
they're all in the industry too.
yeah,
And it's just great and if you're in the industry, then you have success. You know how to navigate it. And anytime you can, it's a cheat code. If you can
yeah.
get a good mentor or have good people that you can count on to give you advice. Jason Say is one that I lean on a lot when it comes to food plot stuff. And he's another guy that if you reach out to, he's going to respond. He's going to help you out as much as he can. And he may not, he may not even know who you are. He didn't know who I was at first, and he still took the time to help me. and
Yeah.
and because learning the food plot stuff, it's such a deep dive, right? So I categor like I put it in two categories. You've got your throw and grow guys, and you have guys that are, yeah, and there's nothing
I
wrong
am
with
that
that.
guy.
But it's kind of like, you can throw and grow and just go,
Hmm.
or you can take it to the next level. And that's where I've learned to not leave hard edges. That's where I've learned to do, weaving. That's where, because it turns into, nature will take over so fast. I've
Yeah.
had plots that I've put in and neglected for 2 weeks come back and they're completely ruined because the native weeds have grown higher and it completely choked out what was underneath, under the
So
canopy.
I need to stop you there. So you're saying you neglected it for 2 weeks. What all goes into this? Because like in
So,
my mind, it's like you clear it all out, right? And then you plant, you wait for rain, and then you just let it grow, right?
well, so what I'll do is I'll come through, I'll scalp it. I'll mow it high, and then I'll mow it, because obviously you never want to go in and bush hog anything that
Yeah.
you're not familiar with low. So I'll come in, I'll bush hog it high, and then we'll walk through it, and then we'll lay it down. I mean, we'll burn it up if we can,
Hmm.
and then I'll come in and if it's poison ivy, poison oak, sumac, stuff like that, I'll normally spray it first
Hmm.
just to kill it. But a lot of times I'll come through and I'll disc it. A lot of times I'll unhook the disc and I'll leave it there, and then I'll wait 3 or 4 days, because what you're going to do, you're going to kill a lot of the grass, but you're not going to kill all of the grass, because
Oh,
it
okay.
just turns it. So I'll come back in a few days later when you can visibly see what's dead has turned brown and kind of dried up, and
Yeah.
I'll disc it again. And then I'll try to disc it to where the thatch is out. And then I'll come through a lot of times like maybe a grater box if it's uneven, and I'll kind of try to get it smooth again. And
Hmm.
then, I'll broadcast, and then I will lightly drag. We have an ATV drag,
Okay.
so no weight on it or anything like that, super light. And then I'll broadcast, lightly drag. I'll come back in a few days later and I'll overseed. I'll throw another whole batch at it. And what
Yeah.
that's doing is it's just whatever's not taking, because you're not going to have 100% yield
Yeah.
out of a thing. So I lay it to it, and then I'll come back and I'll weed eat the edges, and I'll scalp the edges with the weed eater, and I'll just on the dirt, and that's kind of, Spencer explained it really well. Some of your broadleafs, if you mow them out long enough, kind of like your yard, they
Mhm.
understand, hey, I'm not supposed to be here. I keep getting cut. It's the craziest thing. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of what we're doing. We're making that buffer zone, and then it's, a weed eater head wide, 8 inches, whatever. We can cut it straight to the dirt, and I'll keep it down like that. And then sometimes, depending on the way the dirt or the land lays, I'll come in and spray it, but I'll never spray it if it's uphill of my plot because I don't want it to rain heavy and wash
Yeah.
down. It's probably overthinking it, but that's the way I think about it. And
I
then,
mean, you're right though. It
yeah,
makes sense.
and then like I'll have to send you some videos, but if we're cutting a trail to walk to the stand, we never cut a straight trail. We cut hard edges. We zig it. That way, if you're walking in and there's a deer in the food plot, you have edges you can creep up on him on.
Mm,
That way, it's not just a straight strip that they can see straight down.
yeah.
And they do feel
Smart.
more comfortable in that.
Huh. Dude, yeah, I definitely didn't know.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, like a lot of this stuff is just me, talking to some of these guys and then laying in bed and being like, you know what, I got busted trying to sneak up on that deer today, like, or that
Yeah.
turkey. Like, what could I have done different? And it was like, okay, my strut zones I'm not going to do straight. Like a lot of them I'll do, you know, all my fields have them around them, and I'll do like almost like a big rainbow where it's got a
Yeah.
big arch. That way you can hug one or the other. And so I got off on that one, but
No, you're
the food
good.
plot.
I
So like
mean,
I neglected it because I did not go and weed eat. I didn't go back and disc it.
mm,
I just mowed it, and then maybe I disked it and released those forbs, and those forbs are going to grow at a rapid pace because they have
mhm.
been in such a seed bank. I've got food plot stuff from like 2 years ago that I froze, right? And I can take that seed out there, and as soon as it touches dirt, it's going to germinate and it's going to start growing.
Hmm.
But it won't do it until it touches dirt. Like it's such a weird. We talked about that with domain, and it's just like
Yeah.
it's such a weird thing that this seed that doesn't have a brain, but somehow God made it to where when it touches dirt, it knows what to do.
Dude, I've been wrestling with that honestly. Like not a lot, but I've seen people post things or I've seen articles or whatever where it's like they've tested it and somehow it's like trees and grass and all of that is alive.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Mhm.
how is that even pop? But I'm gonna sound like a hippie right now, but it basically just makes it seem like the earth itself is alive,
Yeah.
so it makes sense. Um, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah. I mean, if you can spray something on a plant to kill it, that means it's living.
Yeah.
It's
So what you're
definitely
saying
living.
is buy a bag of clover, throw it in the freezer, and then when I'm ready.
You can 100%. You can.
Okay, got it. Well, I'm going to Tractor Supply tomorrow, so I'm going to do that.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you don't even have to freeze it. You can just keep it on the shelf. But
Oh,
like long term storage, like
mm,
more than probably like 6 months, I would freeze it.
oh, okay. Well,
But
okay,
yeah,
maybe I won't do that then. I don't
100%,
know. I
100%
mean,
you can.
so like so it doesn't sound like there's that much prep that goes into as far as like when you plant, like what you have to add to it. Because what I've always thought, and I even read the bags, and they're like, all right, plant this around this time of year, use this fertilizer, do a soil test. It sounds like a lot, you know?
It can be. Like your your turnips don't do very well in heat. You want to plant them later.
Mm,
That's a fall. It'll wilt. It'll wilt because they hold so much moisture
yeah,
in the actual leaves. Um, but you throw out clover, man, it's gonna grow. It's just gonna grow. It doesn't
yeah,
matter. Like that's why it's in people's yards. It's in
yeah. I have tons of it.
Yeah, and the deer love it. They love the bulbs, the purple, the white
Mhm.
one. They love it all, and it is just it comes back. That's why I can, and the deer love it. So like if I can spend a little extra now to get all these big clover plots, and then next year in the spots that aren't thriving, I can take the mantis tiller in there and I can manhandle those spots that aren't taking and growing properly. Then I can oversee specifically on that spot. So it's not even like you have to have big equipment or, the fancy stuff. Like there's a lot of times we were out there with the Milwaukee powered chainsaw this weekend, just cutting stuff down. And
Yeah,
it's just like, it doesn't matter if it's a sawzall or a chainsaw, or if you're out there doing it, you're working towards your season. You're
yeah,
working towards, something. And I feel like we owe it to the animal to make the most ethical shot or make sure that they have the best habitat possible. I don't ever hunt like public land, but I still buy my license every year, so I'm contributing to them doing it. But I promise, if you guys come and looked at my farms, you'd be like, "Holy crap! Like this is crazy." And
yeah.
it's one of those things where I just want to. It's become like the girls love it. They love being out there and doing it. So it's a way for us to spend time together.
Yeah.
My buddies come up. I've got guys that don't ever even hunt with me. They just ask if they can come and help so that they can learn. And they'll
Yeah.
come up and they'll spend time and they leave learning something. I normally leave learning something. And if I don't work, like this is my third podcast this week, and I'm jonesing to get outside, dude. Like I am so ready to get outside, and just I feel like I'm falling behind.
Yeah. I'm
But
sorry.
I needed it, man, because I tallied it up. I was talking to Brett, and I put in like 34 hours last week on just food plot stuff. When I got home, I
Jeez,
would get
dude.
home, and from 5:30 until 9:30, 10 o'clock, I was outside, and it's just because I ran out of daylight. That's the
Yeah.
only reason. And the headlights aren't the best on the Kubota, so
That's
it's like,
crazy.
yeah. But I sent you that video of me and my little one bush hogging in that buck. He comes out,
Yeah.
he turns, he walks straight up that, and you can just watch him disappear into the soft edge. I'm on the tractor 100 yards from him. So
Hmm.
he felt safe enough to come out.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what he's doing. He walks up and he goes right back in. So
Yeah.
that's
Because he knows
valuable.
you're planting food for him.
Yep, and that's valuable information for later on, right?
Yeah.
So I know where they're. I've seen them there 4 nights in a row coming out in the same little draw. So that
Uh-oh.
tells me, hey, this bow season, that's their summer routine. That's what
Yeah.
they're doing. That's what I need to do. And I've learned so much from just working out and seeing how they move. That 140, the velvet buck, man, he was 50 yards from the house twice a day, every day from the house.
Oh man, he'd have been dead. I
Yeah,
couldn't do
yeah,
it.
we got him during velvet.
Yeah.
Um,
That.
but
Man.
I built these trails that intertwine from bedding to bedding and food, and they're just using it because deer. I don't care what people say, man. They're going to take the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to see something super steep or thick and not pick the logging road that's cut up the side of it. They're going to try to take. Now, if something's after them, of course they're going to do
Yeah.
that. But
It's kind of
around here, I've learned that.
it's a little contradictive though, because I struggle with that when I'm looking at my spots, because people say, deer are like us. They want to take the path of least resistance.
Hmm.
But then you hear other people say like, oh, the biggest buck, he's in that thick stuff. He's in the
Yep.
super thick, which I've I have to say is true about both ends, really,
Hmm.
because I've seen
It
both.
is.
Like I've
I've
got a
seen them
spot now that last season I had 8 shooter bucks in, and
shoot.
now
Yeah.
mind you, I started hunting it. I only saw one, unfortunately, which is actually why I cut some of the saplings down, and it totally screwed up where I was set up. But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, dude, like around there, it's almost like I don't want to say a sanctuary, but I know they feel safe in there because it's a
Yeah.
thicket to my left. It's stupid thick to the right. Right in front of me is like it's like a RC playing field or something. It's basically a marsh.
Yeah.
And then past the thicket on my left is open hardwoods. And that's where they come from. And
Hmm.
way down on my right, more open hardwoods. So it's like, it makes sense, but it almost kind of can probably confuse people when they're like,
Yep.
why are they going through this super thick stuff if they want to take the path of least resistance? You know what
I
I'm saying?
have seen them where I shot the big one at. I see them 9 times out of 10 come up off that finger because it's a gradual slope. But
Mhm.
then I don't even know how to explain this buck, but he was probably, I mean, massive one side. And we killed a smaller one in there, kind of like this. He's got a normal side, big, wide, but this side he has 2 big main beams. And they don't really branch out. One just kind of comes up and curls, and then the
Hmm.
other one's a full main beam that just sticks straight up. And I
That's
mean,
interesting.
crazy looking buck. And this year, I think it was the day I got back from Indiana. I go in and I'm hunting, and it's this big, deep ravine, dude. I mean, deep. And
Yeah.
I'm watching the deer this way, and I catch something, and that buck come up out of that ravine. And I mean, it's gnarly, like mountain goat,
Huh. Yeah.
but he did push a doe. So I don't know if he was after that doe, and that's just she was like trying to get away from him, because
Yeah.
if you've ever seen a buck dog a doe, it's pretty wild,
It is. I've seen it
And
once.
yeah, so it's one of those things where I've got some super grown up, nasty, thick stuff here, and they do come out of it.
Hmm.
But it's like if you go in, like if we flew a drone over it and it looks super nasty thick on the outside, but their trails on the inside are
Yep.
almost like highways. So it does give that appearance that it's unnavigable, but once you get in there, it's kind of like, oh, okay,
Yeah. Well,
I
and that's
see
kind
what
of
they're
what I
doing.
noticed too. Like in that spot I
Yeah.
was telling you about, the first time I went there and hunted, I'm like, God, how are they even getting through this? And then I watched it because I hadn't even, I had a camera out, but I didn't really know what route they were taking. And then I started after about 3, maybe 4 sits. I was looking around because it dawned on me. I'm like, well, okay, they're coming in somewhere.
Hmm.
Which way are they most of the time coming? And there was 2 different routes I noticed. There was one right in front of me that it completely it's the reason why I didn't kill this 10 point that was standing in front of me at 25 yards.
Yeah.
Um, because he walked directly at me, and I don't know if he saw me. I don't know what caused him to do this, but we had a Mexican standoff for about 30 minutes at last light, and I had to snort wheeze at him to get him out of there
Yeah.
because I didn't want him to know that there was a person in there.
Yeah.
And it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But he comes up and he turns right, goes into some of the thick stuff, and I can see his vitals, but it's getting a little dark, and there's a hole about that big.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm good, but I'm not that good. Like, not
Yeah.
under pressure. But I noticed that trail, and then off to my left, there's another one that I actually just got a photo of. What I'm hoping is the main like big dog over there. Um, I got a photo of him coming through the super thick stuff, and so I know that oak flat's on the other side. So I know that there's got to be like a little tunnel for them to go through.
Yeah.
And I've never thought of that up
Yeah.
until the spot. I never thought of it because none of my
Okay.
other spots are that thick. So
Yeah. And man, I've got a farm that it used to be a working farm. It's about 50 acres, and the old man died, and this new guy bought it. Well, he didn't live there, so I mean, it's 20 years of just being the nasty, like you can't walk through it. And those deer just funnel through there, and it's insane, like
yeah,
the amount of deer that are in it. And you almost feel like, yeah, I understand that they want to be in thick stuff, but you think it would almost compromise their safety,
yeah,
you know,
that's what I've always thought.
from coyotes,
Hmm.
bobcats. Like when they get in something super thick like that's got to be dangerous,
Yeah,
for them, because if something does get a hold of them, it's you can't go anywhere.
yeah,
Um,
deer just gonna deer. I mean,
yeah.
I try to make sense of it, and like early season, yeah, you can pretty much pattern them to an extent. But once all the foliage is gone, because that's the thing I never knew about this place because I just got this spot back in November, and my buddy had been hunting it for a couple years, and he told me he's like, dude, early season's where you're really gonna kill these deer because
Mhm.
it's so thick in there they feel safe.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe him, right? Like I knew in the wintertime, yeah, okay, there's a briar, thicket over here and whatever. But dude, I went back there for the first time after our first green up. I got nervous because I'm like, shit, I can't see anything.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
don't know if there's a bobcat or a coyote or a deer that's 20 yards away. I mean, it was insane. But again,
Yeah.
like you said, they've got their little highways.
They've got their
So
highways. That's before their winter locations change, their
yeah.
fall switch happens. And I didn't really understand that until we moved to the farm and I could watch them. I've got one buck. His summer range is one corner of the property, and
Mhm.
and he shifts. He shifts to the top part.
Hmm.
He doesn't move much, but he moves enough to where he's not in that bottom corner in that bedding, because there's another buck that normally will show up. And
Yeah.
now I've been here long enough. I kind of can tell which bucks are what, or what's going on. And as they shift, it'll push those younger bucks out. And I'm just like, okay. So Jason Say was telling me and Brett, like, the best time to kill a big buck is as soon as your season opens. Like,
Yeah.
you've got him patterned. There's no pressure. Get in there, get him. And me and Jason were talking. Find a place to hang your stand in a cedar thicket, like right on the edge of the cedars. It's gonna hide you. The cedars put off a certain type of smell. Another tree that I'll always try to find and climb around is a beech tree. So if I can get in like a little beech tree thicket and
Yeah.
climb up a tall tree in the beech tree, or like the beech tree thicket, from their point of view, the beech trees are 15, 20 feet tall, super bushy, hold leaves all year long. You
Yeah.
know, to get close to those deer, it's taking a lot of your movement out of their eyesight. if
Yeah.
you're up above the beech trees. So like cedars, beech trees, branches. You'll never catch me just climbing like a bare tree out in the open. I'll always have some sort of cover. But I've had a lot of more success coming in and taking extra time to find that beech tree, find
Mhm.
that cedar tree. Um, I mean, I scuff up the ground like right where I'm at because I'll put my climber down. You know, a lot of sense getting there. I'll flip dirt over, dude. Fresh dirt over. Just
Yeah.
scrape it up. You know, that it probably not gonna help me. But then again, it could completely hide that scent
Yeah.
potentially, you know?
What do you think about like pine trees and stuff? Because I hunted out of a lot of pines last year,
Hmm.
and really, because I up until this year, I'd always use a climber. Like this is my first
Yeah.
year using to hang on, and I always would pick out a pine tree, not only because it's the easiest to climb, but I started noticing when I'd get out of the woods, I'd smell like pine
Yeah.
because sap is coming out and like it. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it fully covers because I know it
It's
doesn't.
gotta
I've been
help,
blown
you
at
know.
plenty of times, but it helps.
Yeah, it has to. I mean, we don't have many pines where I'm at. We have a lot of cedar.
Hmm.
You know, and that's great for when I'll take the girls hunting, you know, and I'll put the ground blind up and we'll go cut a ton of cedar branches and, you know, brush it in real good because I'll
Yeah,
take the heater and stuff for them. So, I mean, anything that's going to produce some sort of natural fragrance, it's just got to help you,
yeah,
in
yeah.
my
That's.
opinion, you know?
I mean, they do make that one product that you can like put water in it with pine needles and spray it
Yeah.
all over you, and then you smell like a pine tree, which
Yeah,
I haven't
and the
used, but
wafers, you know, they have those
yeah,
wafer things that smell just like it. I mean, it's just one of those things where I'm very fortunate to have a lot of freedom as far as like it is to I can hunt. You know, I hunt almost every day during hunting season.
hmm,
So I feel like just being able to do that has helped me pattern my deer. Now I go to Indiana with Brett, brother. I have no clue what's going on, but
yeah,
that's not what I'm used to. So I feel like if you can just get out there and just spend time in the woods, you know, your woodsmanship is going to increase. You're going to be cautious of noises and sounds, and you're going to hear the way a squirrel barks at, you
oh,
know, a
dude,
bobcat versus the deer.
yeah,
And you know, I've really noticed that crow love to pester deer and turkey.
dude, crows love to pester me.
Yeah,
I hate
isn't
those
it
things.
wild?
God,
So
I
it,
hate them.
you know, like
They,
I can be sitting there and hear a squirrel start barking, and I'm like, okay, it's probably there's something
yeah,
that shouldn't be in here moving around. And it's 9 times out of 10 a bobcat or a coyote. But I mean, it's nature's alarm, dude. They're gonna let you
yeah.
know something's not right.
The one thing that I noticed and never, I mean, it took me 2, 3 years, honestly, just learn the squirrel thing. And then I
Yeah.
actually had a squirrel. Believe it or not, I had a squirrel one time. I guess I was in his tree and I didn't know it. The sucker jumps on the branch next to me and starts doing that little
Oh yeah.
in my face. And I guess he had some acorns or something. This sucker literally threw an acorn at me. And I'm
That's
like,
why.
I look at him like, hey, Hammy, what are you doing? I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
He's
here for you.
territorial.
Dude, it pissed me off so
They
much.
they will. And they make so much noise. It's like,
Yeah.
you
But
know,
like,
there's been times where I'm like, oh, that's definitely a buck. Like that has to be a buck coming because it's moving quick. It's steady. It's not, you know, like bounce, bounce, bounce. And it just be a bunch of squirrels chasing each other. And I'm
yep.
like, oh my gosh.
Dude, I've got a story for you. I'm gonna finish the point I was making, and then I got this funny story that I guarantee you're gonna laugh at. But another thing I noticed was like blue jays. Blue
Hmm.
jays are, if you hear a blue jay, look over there because 9 times out of 10 that I've heard it, there has been a deer. Now it's hasn't been a giant buck, but it's been like a doe or like a yearling buck or something that's showing up. But you're talking about squirrels, dude. I'll never forget this, and I've told this story 1,000 times on the podcast. But I was hunting public 4 years ago, and worst year of my life, like worst season. My dad passed away. I missed a deer. It was my first year bow hunting. It was just a terrible year, right? But this public land out by the house, I had this one little honey hole over there. And my buddy showed me. And so I go in on a cold November morning. It's the rut. I'm still relatively new to bow hunting. I mean, it is my first year, but I've been shooting a bow at that point for about a year. And I'm facing this field because in my mind, that's where the deer are going to be at. They're going to be bedded in the field. They're going to come out here because there's acorns. I've got the grunt call. I've got the bleat can. There's a mock scrape off to my right. Perfect setup. So the sun comes up and, I hit the can, do a couple tending grunts, and I'm just watching squirrels, right? It's all I'd seen for about, I don't know, the first hour of daylight. And I hear what I thought was a squirrel behind me because I heard like the chitter, and I heard the twig snap. And I turn around and 30 yards behind the tree that I was in had to be a 160-inch buck. Biggest deer I've ever seen on the hoof, biggest deer I've ever seen in my life. And if I had waited, he would have walked from my right out to, where I could have shot him. But because I was still relatively new, instead of going slowly to look behind the tree, I just whip around it because I'm thinking it's a squirrel. And he saw me and looked up, blew, ran across over the fire break about 40, 50 yards, looked at me, flicked the tail, and then just disappeared and never seen him again. So me and squirrels it's almost like me and turkeys. I've got a problem with them. They don't like me. So
make it tough on you.
It's rough, man. But look, I want to know, did we miss anything on food plots? Is there anything else we need to cover before we wrap it up?
I mean, there's a lot of the prep, and then I'm kind of like that middle-aged man with his yard, dude. Me and the girls take the four-wheeler down there, the side-by-side, and we'll just, we're checking on it every day. We're watching it grow, and you have to stay on top of the edges, keep those weed-eated back, or once it gets in there, it's, it's fresh soil. It's going to take back over. So just treat it like a fancy yard, man. Take care of them. I've got this big tank that if we need to, I can go water them. If it gets that. Now we've had a super wet spring this year, so it's not been an issue, but you get into August, stuff like that, it tends to get a little bit dry. We'll take water to the top of the hill and just flip that barrel and let water run down, or we'll take the sprayers and we'll physically spray the fields just to get them, out some moisture and give them a little break from the heat. But it's really become kind of, I'd say, my passion project, dude. I mean, I love doing the food plot work, the land management, just as much as I love hunting, because it's so rewarding to take a spot that, you don't know if deer's using it because it's so thick, and then you build it and then you see them using it. And you're like, okay, well, there's something to what I'm doing. And it's just giving a little bit back to, kind of what you take, because I preach the yes, hunting, the deer, the turkey, it is a renewable resource, but it's a very slow renewable resource, right? So if you take, if you've got 2 toms, you take both this year, it's going to be a while before you get 2 more back in there potentially. So treat it as if, you're focused on next year. That's my worry going into this year. I'm worried about next year, because if I'm worried about next year, I'm taking care of this year. And that's, with my kids, man, I really want to make sure that they grow up and they have a good place to hunt. And, I'm doing it so that they can thrive and enjoy it. But with the way land is and the way everything's going in this world, there could be no hunting in 40 years, so I'm just really trying to enjoy everything that I can get. I'm thankful for every opportunity. Like you having me on here to just talk, and if any of your listeners want to hit me up and ask me questions, I'd love that. Yeah. If anybody, I can talk it all day long. So,
I would probably zone out on like hour 3 because of ADD and not knowing anything about food plots, but I'm definitely going to be calling you when I do it. Okay, for our climate, because our climates are pretty similar. I mean, you're a little bit further north, like probably 4.5 hours north.
So you're not getting into the sandy soil yet, right? You're still.
No, we have nothing but red clay, man.
Okay. So we used to hunt a big farm in Taylor County, and it had a lot of the sandy, some of the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah.
Was deep South Georgia. And I remember they had this gas station that just had nothing on the wall but like 180s and bigger.
Yep.
I would
South Georgia ag country too.
It's crazy. I was telling my
giants.
fiance, I was like, I can't remember which gas station that was, but I know we were in high school and my uncle would take us down there. And I remember we would stop at that gas station and it was like better than a Bass Pro Shop. And I was like, I'd almost take the girls down there just to go to that gas station because of how crazy it is. But, there's big deer everywhere.
Yeah.
If you just are patient. And, like I told you earlier, I've quit running trail cameras during hunting season because I was getting discouraged. But if you have your camera out and you've not got that big buck on camera, who's to say he's not using the tree behind it?
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I was just getting lazy a little
yeah.
bit with it. So yeah, try that. Try that, dude. I'm telling you, it's fun. It's fun.
I'm doing that on public this year. I
Yeah,
can't do it on private.
it is hard. It is very hard.
Yeah. Well, and plus I let my daughter and my wife name most of the deer that I hunt.
Oh,
Like,
okay, yeah. So
like
you
I've got a
can
buck now that I don't know if it's one I've seen before. If it is, then me and my wife are probably gonna have an argument
yeah,
later in the year. But I was just showing her pictures and I was like, dude, check this buck out. And she goes, let me see your phone. I was like, okay. I'm thinking she's gonna like draw something on the photo, right?
yeah.
And she's doing something. She's not letting me see it. And she hands the phone back and she wrote Maleficent on the side of it. And I was like, what's this mean? She's like, oh, that's the name. She's like, I want to name a deer for once. That deer looks like the Disney Maleficent character, because the antlers went like straight out
Yeah.
and it looked like horns. And I was like, huh, okay. Like I argued with her a little bit. I'm like, well, it might be this
Yeah.
deer, it might be that. She's like, no, that's Maleficent. I'm like, whatever, dude, that's fine.
You're
She
like,
named a
okay.
doe last year Mary because I
Yeah.
shot her the year before. So she
Yeah.
calls her Mary the Holy Doe.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
like,
mean, it makes sense.
it does,
Yeah.
but I'm like, that's like borderline blasphemy, I think. But
Yeah. Well,
I
it's
don't know.
fun, man, when you can sit down with, your family and kind of incorporate it because, Maddie will go through the trail cam pictures with me and she's like, nope, can't shoot that one.
Yep.
Can't shoot that one. Can't shoot that one. That one you can. And she's like, I'm gonna shoot that one. And she names them, but she's not gotten to the age where she really names. She's like, yeah, we'll call him drop time 9 or whatever, or that's the
Yeah.
big 7. Like it's just kind of vague. But yeah, if she's home and I plan on shooting a doe, I've got to wait until she goes to the grandparents' house for the weekend because she gets on
Yeah.
to me. She's like, no mama doe. It's
Mm-hmm.
big daddy bucks only. And
Yep.
but I mean, when I killed that big one this year, she's all over it. She was taking pictures, twisting its head, and we shoot turkeys, and she'll pull the legs off and take off with the
Oh God.
leg. I mean, she's just. But then again, she's so girly too. Like it's just the best little. They're just so funny.
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter gets mad at me, man. And my niece especially. She is like, dude, if I even look at a doe the wrong way, my niece wants to
Hmm.
beat me up, and she's 10.
Yeah,
And
it's like nope, not happening.
like last year, dude, I shot that one and I showed her a picture of it, me holding the doe's head and whatnot. And she was like, is that a buck? I'm like, do you see any antlers? And she was like, no. I'm like, then it's not a buck. I was like, that's a
Yeah,
doe. And she's like, why'd you shoot Bambi's mom? I'm like, because she tastes good.
yeah,
We have too many does, man. But
yeah,
they'll still get mad. And I just won't tell them. After this
yeah.
year, I just won't tell them.
That's kind of what I have to do this year. I have to thin some out. I've not
Yeah.
shot a doe in probably 4 to 5 years on any of my farms. So I'm
Wow.
gonna have to go through and kind of wean them out. But it was funny. We were at the zoo the other day, and my fiance said something to Haley or to Maddie, and Maddie was like, "Those aren't horns; they're antlers. They fall off. They'll grow back." Like she's
Nice.
4, and she's like, "No, those aren't horns. Those are antlers." So it's just, man, if you
Yeah.
rake them in it, they pick up on it quietly, and then you know talk about it later on.
Yeah.
So it's funny.
Yeah, we had career day at Tiff's school a week ago, I think. And so I did the podcast as like the career because I did
Yeah,
my actual career the year before and it was super boring. I ended up talking about the podcast more.
yeah,
And so I went ahead and did that, and every single kid came up and they're like, are these real horns? And I'm like, actually, let me tell you something, kid.
yeah,
It's antlers. They fall
yeah,
off. And then I went today to my daughter's award ceremony at her school, and she runs up to me and she's like, hey, so-and-so told me that she was watching your podcast. And I
yeah.
was like, really? She pointed her out and she waved, and I was like, hey, we got another
Cool.
one.
Yeah,
I was like, if it's just one kid.
yeah,
But yeah, man, it's great. But look, so we covered food plots, at least 101.
yeah,
I do, because you are way closer than most of the, I guess, big buck killers. The only other person that I could probably say is in the area that I know for a fact would come on would be Joe Miles with Osseo.
mhm,
Um, other than that, a lot of my buddies that kill big deer are kind of more north. So I want to do this series, and people know, from me talking about in other episodes and stuff that in July and August, I'm planning on doing a whitetail series where I get as many guys around this area that I can to come on and actually talk about like not just the food plots we're doing, not just the
Mhm.
food we're using, but like the tactics, what they do, how they get in, scrapes, stuff like that. So if
Yeah.
you have the time, probably in August, I'd like to get you back on where we can really dive deep into it
Okay.
and see what you're seeing compared to what we're seeing down here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to. That works out great because August we're getting ready to do the velvet hunt. So if we time it right, we could be talking about a big one down.
Well, yeah, I've been wanting to go up to
So,
actually, let me ask you this because me and my buddy Josh are planning on coming to Tennessee
mhm.
this year to do a hunt, probably on public. But what is the velvet hunt private only?
Yes. Now that I know of. Now I do think there are some WMAs that are open,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not familiar with that. I would download the TWRA app if you don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, a tool that I've been using a lot lately, it's kind of wild, but the AI chat GPT, you can ask it
Really?
rules and regulations and it'll pop it up and actually reference it to the page.
Huh.
I've been using that quite a bit, but now I will straight reference it to the app or the
Yeah.
book. But there are some WMAs, if it's like it was last year, that you can hunt. However, I don't know if that's down towards like the CWD area
Mm-hmm.
or if it's in the big ag part of the state because you know it gets so flat and ag land.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're thinking about doing like that in October doe days. And that's going to be a pretty much a public land shootout. There'll be a lot of content creators come into that. Um, if you guys want to come up to that, put you a few guys together and we're going to be using a boat to kind of get into some of these back watered places where you can't get to it because it's landlocked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I would like to do like a big doe day, and I think we're going to donate, some of the meat to the shelters, and we're going to
Yeah.
try to do. I've got some people I know that they love deer meat, and they're extremely grateful and thankful
Mm-hmm.
for that, and that's primarily what they eat. So I'm going to try to do that for the doe days and help feed as many families as we can. That way, everybody can get together, old school camp, and then we're helping people, make it through that, Christmas time
Yeah.
by giving them a deer, that frees up some money so that they can, throw it on Christmas or whatever. So we're trying to build all of this kind of, you know, great thing to where, after we do it this year, next year you're requesting off for it. You're like, oh, we ain't missing doe days in Tennessee. Like
Yeah.
we're going and I'm bringing these people and it's just gonna you see Seek One doing this stuff. You see a lot of
Mm-hmm.
these companies putting this together and it looks fun, and then when you build it and like with the turkey roundup, man, it's hard to just leave it and go in and go to sleep, but you have to hunt the next day. So like
Yeah.
you physically have to. But yeah, we're just trying to build and be a group that kind of is helping bigger than us to kind of put a good spotlight on it. As far as like, oh yeah, these guys they're doing a lot with habitat management. They're doing a lot with this. They're helping needy families. They're just doing things to help when a lot of people aren't. So if we can do something to highlight what we're doing, man, sign me up and I'll put a crew together and we'll do it.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, send me over the info for that when you guys figure it out. And I've got a few buddies that I know want to come up there. So we'll see if we can make it happen.
Yeah,
But yeah, man. So, all right, before we sign off of here, give me a shameless plug. Obviously, Blue River Bow Hunting.
yeah.
Um,
Uh,
let's hear it.
Check out Blue River Bow Hunting, the podcast, the YouTube. Brett just made the Instagram for it, so check us out there.
Oh, so that was you guys.
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I saw y'all follow me, and I was like, I thought there was already one, so I thought maybe it was like a
yeah.
not a
Well,
dummy account, but
the the guy who was running it didn't really run it the best. Like he was
mhm,
kind of like personal use, and I get it. He's busy, life happens. So Brett just made a new one so that we can kind of roll with that.
got it.
Man, we hit episode 100, and I kind of just challenged him. I was like, bro, let's just get these big names on. Like, let's be selfish with this podcast, and let's get guys on that we want to learn from. And if we can take selfishly this podcast and the conversations are going to be good because we're genuinely interested in it And
Yeah.
then if we're learning, they're learning, and we've grown a lot since then. We've had some great guests. So check that out. Check out Drake Waterfowl. I've been with them forever. The non-typical Drake, all that new stuff is fixing to launch. I mean, the new stuff is insane. Check out Domain if you're fixing to plant a food plot. If you have questions, get with anybody from Domain or me. And just, yeah, if you have any questions about anything, if you want to put together like something like the turkey roundup in your area and you have questions about how to kind of start with that, then let me know. I'll help anybody do anything that I can, man.
Awesome. I love it. Awesome, dude. Well, look, thank you for coming on. I learned
No
a lot.
problem.
I'm gonna have to listen to this probably like 15 times to retain everything.
Yeah,
But
it can be a lot.
it is, and that's why I want to do like a 101, right? So
Yeah,
obviously we can always come back and do a more in-depth once I actually go
absolutely.
do it, you know. But plan on your phone blowing up in about a month and a half, 2 months, because I am gonna be calling you saying, all right, I did this, this didn't work, this worked. What do I do?
Absolutely.
But really, I appreciate you coming on, man. I learned a
No
lot.
problem. Thanks for having me, man. If you have any questions, just you know how to get a hold of me.
Yes, sir. Sounds